Quite the morning already. When we're just in morning, I'm getting ready to do the zillion clothes washing. Trying to talk my husband into getting the maid to come 3 times a week instead of once, and taking over everything but the laundry and the dishes. Those things I'll still do. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write a column for Pathos for nearly 10 years called No Longer Quivering, looking at the quiverful movement and evangelicalism in general and Christianity. I have to debunk this. I'm not an atheist, but nor am I a straight theist that believes the way that most Christians believe. I have a different belief system altogether now. So of those of you that love to show up and say, you're not a Christian, please, you can stop that nonsense. I'm just going to block you and move your comment to Jerks for Jesus when you do that. Please do not harass anybody, harangue them, throw nasty words at anybody I talk about. Hey, Java man. They do need to go to the Ukraine. Actually, she needs to go anywhere that is not the U.S. Let me start with an apology. I'm apologizing yet again to Redneck Barbie because a couple of weeks ago I was laughing over the fact that I didn't think $100,000 was much money. And I didn't realize at the time she lives in Mississippi where you can buy a house for $100,000 or less, and $75,000 is considered a good salary. I've lived in the DC area for over 30 years. I've lived here almost 5, and I keep forgetting what it's like elsewhere. I forget what it's like in Mississippi until I have to do something, like the time that we drove through West Virginia, the worst of West Virginia, Welch, West Virginia, McDowell County. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. I saw people living in ramshackle chicken coops and things. Hey, T King. So that's okay. I haven't really started yet. Java man, that'd be interesting. So I tend to forget that I live a very privileged life until things bring that in. Like this week, I got my tax bill and got to see what the canton of Santa Cruz decided my house was worth. And it was kind of eye-opening there because just like in the States, things have jumped here. And what I paid for my house, what I knew it was worth, and what it's jumped to now is insane. I could not afford to buy this piece of property now unless I put just about all of my assets into it at the time. Well, not all of them, but a lot, all the cash ones. So, Redneck Barbie, I'm sorry. I was extremely elitist with my laughter over that. You have to understand that where I live, if you didn't make between $200,000 and $300,000, you weren't going to be able to even afford a house. That's the reality of living in the DC. It's not good. So I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. I screw up left and right. I try to apologize. I've already apologized. This makes the 3rd time I've apologized for this. So I hope that makes you feel better about it. So, because I do screw up. I screw up left and right. As anybody who watches me regularly can tell you, the difference between myself and a lot of creators, I try to own it once it dawns on me. And it dawned on me less than 24 hours later. I was like, not everybody lives like that. And I didn't think about that. Anyway, so let's get into this. I watched Renelle Smith when I got up this morning. I got up real late. Renelle was upset over things that Without a Box of Kleenex was saying. Apparently last night, I made some comments about $100,000 wasn't much money. And like I said, it just depends upon where you are. Some places it is, some places it's not. Here if you're local and you're living here, nobody has that. Well, very few. And But if you're an American here, you better have at least that or you're going to suffer. I'm just going to say it and throw it out. Yep, she jumped up there. Beautiful porky girl, yes. So anyway, last night, apparently Without a Box of Kleenex was talking about Medicorp. And Renelle got offended and did a video about what Without a Box of Kleenex was saying and about Ukraine and how heartbreaking it is. Now, it is. I mean, I totally agree with you. We actually had a fight in this household this morning because I said something about it to my husband. And I know my husband is one of these guys that has started to move, I don't want to say right wing, but he's moved so far left, he's almost right. He listens to people that I think are atrocious and sometimes quotes them. We had a fight about whether or not you should be donating to the Ukraine. He's just like, well, until we know what the situation is and why, Vladimir Putin, blah, 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 blah. I was like, talk to the hand. I'm not going to fight with you because I think what Vladimir Putin is doing is horrible. You don't bomb a maternity hospital. I understand there are children in that rubble, children, small children. And that is pretty much scary. Yeah, I love Vernell too. She was getting on to KJ about some of her things she said. But here's the thing, and I wrote Vernell a long comment. I wasn't trying to be ranty because Vernell was accusing KJ for making up about what happened with the Duggars, the Bates, and Medicare Corp in the Bahamas. It was like 4 years ago, I think, September, October. The only reason that I can remember that is because I wrote about it for NLQ sitting at my daughter's dining room table in East Falls Church, where she lived, East Falls Church, Virginia. So I was sitting in her condo writing about it, and I remember just being jaw dropped. What happened in the Bahamas? A couple of things happened. The Duggars, the Bates, and everyone at Medicorp took their own private planes into the Bahamas to help after a hurricane. They weren't very well behaved. There were numerous eyewitness accounts and photographs, photographic evidence, and it ended up in a few of the local national media outlets that they weren't very well behaved. They had guns. They brought guns to another country where they were not allowed to do so without clearing it first. They didn't do that. They just showed up with their Glocks. There's pictures of John David wearing his Glock and other Bates and Duggars doing the same thing. They seized some of the airplane fuel. They took control. They're one of the groups that was first on the ground. So they actually seized supplies and sold them to some of the other organizations. They sold the airplane fuel that they did not own. Renelle is saying that KJ has no support for any of that. Guess what? She does. It was in the national news media. There were numerous eyewitness reports. There were numerous photographic evidence that they did this. In fact, it was reported to the State Department, and there was actually some question whether the Duggars and the Bates were going to be in international trouble over this. But when the Homeland Security started sniffing around the Duggars, and there was all these rumors that they had raided the Duggars, they talked to the Duggars, I thought it was about this. I wasn't thinking it was Josh and anything to do with computers or anything. I was thinking it was what happened in the Bahamas. That there was finally going to be some kind of spank on the hand for bringing guns to a place without getting clearance to do so, and for commandeering supplies on the ground. I really thought they were going to be in trouble for that. Nothing happened, but it brings up some, oh God, am I buffering? Am I buffering for everybody? Let me ask. Am I buffering for everyone? Yeah, a stop clock is bright twice a day. And if you haven't been following the Duggar story, it would be easy to think that this was a without a box of Kleenex fabrication. Sadly, it was not. Fine now. Okay. So it would be easy to think that this is a fabrication. Let me go back and see what I was saying when I buffered. When the Homeland Security raid happened to the Duggars and they were talking to them, I thought it was about this. I thought it was about the guns in the Bahamas and the commandeering of supplies. I had no idea it was Josh. And I'm shocked to this day that there were no legal ramifications for Medicorp, the Duggars, or the Bates. I'm really shocked by that. So anyway, all of this brings some really interesting questions to bear. They're gearing up right now to go to the Ukraine to help out. I am not opposed to that. The Ukraine needs a tremendous amount of help right now. I have friends that live there who are missionaries. I have other people that I've hosted in my home back in Virginia, back in the DC area, who are members of the Ukrainian parliament. I have people that I'm in contact with that actually live there, that are Ukrainian and are having one hell of a time right now. It's a bad situation just all the way around. I can't understand a single word. We'll leave and come back. Small town Jewel. Oh no. Maybe I should go out and come back in. If I do that, sometimes it stops the problem. I'm going to go out and come back in because I'm getting too many of you saying that you can't understand what I'm saying. Let me go ahead and put that in that. Going to start another stream. Oh. Okay. No, so you can all understand me. Okay. So anyway, long story short, we have to talk about the difficulties of what's going to happen. I'm curious to see with Medicorp. Okay, I've got listed in my description a few places that you can donate to, including Medicorp. I'm not opposed to the Duggars and the Bates taking their organization to the Ukraine because the needs are so drastic right now that anybody that has been trained to help, and as much as you may not like the Duggars or the Bates, they have had that training. They've had the training for some of these things. It's just like if you drop almost dead of a heart attack, you're going to want somebody that has a Red Cross certified CPR card to be going, staying alive, doing your CPR. You're going to want that. And the reason I did staying alive is because that's one of the things they train you to do it to. I've had the training. I've got the card myself. Staying alive, or another one bites the dust. They tell you to say these things in your brain as you're doing it to make sure your count is correct. So they're trained. They have the equipment. They may be able to help. So that's a good thing. Okay. But it brings up a lot of questions. I don't know if they're going to take a private plane. I don't know what the situation is with taking a small private plane to Europe, if that's even possible. I know you can bring one down here from the States, but you're flying over places you can land and get fuel. You're not flying over large swaths of the ocean where there's no fueling, no refueling at all. So I don't even know if the Duggars have a plane or planes that they can fly over. So they may have to either pay for a private jet to take them over there, or do what other organizations are having to do and scramble. We don't know what the situation is with planes. I just don't know what they're because they turned all their aviation information to private. So you can't even look to see what kind of planes they have anymore. One young person flew a single engine plane around the world, so it's doable. Java Man, I did not realize that. That's pretty cool. So maybe they can take their plane. I hope they can, because most airlines are no travel to the Ukraine right now. And most of the organizations I know of, they're flying over, who are not using private planes, are flying into Romania, Poland, or Hungary, and having to take the train or hire private trucking to get to the border and get their supplies to the border. So it's going to be difficult no matter how they do it, because they're not going to be able to actually fly into the Ukraine, I don't think. My understanding is the airports there are closed now, temporarily closed, but closed. So it may be difficult. They may have to fly into Romania or Poland. The Red Cross is coming in from Poland right now. So it's always a possibility that they may be able to hook up with them or another organization and get their supplies and themselves across to help out. It's just a bad thing. Just saying, yeah, there's just one of those things. Zero 20. No, that's crazy. I'm gonna have to look that up, Java Man, because that's something I don't know a lot about, and I'm gonna openly admit I don't know about it. The Duggar bait's name will be largely meaningless over there, so it's not like they're going over there to promote themselves at the show or anything. So I cannot throw stones at them for wanting to help. There's a quarantine period to go into the Ukraine. Renell was talking about. I just want to state that is largely meaningless. Throughout the world right now, there are 1 and 2 week quarantine periods. If you're coming from another country, even if you're coming with a valid recent PCR COVID test, they'll tell you to quarantine for a week or two. Nobody does that. Here, the tourists pile in, nobody quarantines. It just is what it is. I think the quarantine measure is going to be meaningless there. Just like the State Department level 4 do not travel is meaningless and people go all over the place. That is not going to impact this either. Did fly over Russia. Can't do that now. Yeah, I know. The Russian airspace is verboten. Now, them bringing guns is going to be a difficult thing unless they're taking their own private plane and they're smuggling them in. But again, they could get in all sorts of trouble for that with not getting clearance on that. So I wouldn't recommend them doing that. Getting their supplies to there may be difficult and costly as well. So I don't know how this is going to work, what it's going to look like. And I can't see how they're going to organize there without hooking up with other organizations there. And there are already a lot of organizations on the ground. Like I said, the Red Cross is coming in through Romania, bringing tons of food. They're bringing supplies like sanitary napkins and toilet paper and things like that. They're bringing water. They're bringing badly needed supplies. They're going down into the subway stations where people are taking shelter from the bombs. And they're also helping to evacuate everyone who has a disability who needs to be evacuated, and people from the hospitals, poor kids that were in the cancer wards, that sort of thing. They're doing that. I'm not a big fan of the Red Cross because they tend to use a lot of their money for their organization more than boots on the ground. But where the rubber meets the road in these bad international situations, they are invaluable. So that's why I have their link here, because they're already there. They're already doing stuff. They're already coordinating. When KJ mentioned about the quarantine, I think she was trying to insinuate that none of the Duggars or Bates are vaccinated, which really doesn't matter at this point. Christine, that doesn't matter anywhere in the world now. Costa Rica has been making the unvaccinated visiting by special medical insurance. Not all countries are doing that, and they're going to lift that in a matter of days. They're lifting that at the end of the month. No one will have to approve their vaccine status here. And I can hardly think that in a worldwide crisis that is going to matter in the Ukraine. I know that was her insinuation, but that is literally not going to matter. They're going to let people through the border probably without checking their PCR status, but they've had the PCR test to prove that they're they're COVID free. I doubt they do any of that. This is a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scope. And that is just going to go by the wayside, along with the quarantine, which is laughable anywhere in the world. The quarantine for 2 weeks. Nobody. So I don't know about you guys, but I am hoping that the Duggars and the Bates have success in this, that they get over there, they get their supplies over there, and they're able to help out. It does not matter, hill of beans, who it is that's helping in my eyes. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I can't see that it matters. And I can't see why anybody would be throwing shade over help over there. It's a bad situation that needs to stop. I keep reading that the Ukrainians are putting up a good fight, that they're kicking the Russians' ass in so many ways. I pray that's true, that Russian is in another Afghanistan that they cannot win. Just like the US learned in Vietnam, you can't always, and other things we've done, you cannot go into a country with a completely different culture. And I talk about culture quite a bit because culture varies so much from nation to nation, and it really does matter. Culture matters. If you come into a place and you ignore culture, bad things happen. Here, what happens is you get extremely frustrated, and at the end of 2 years, you say adios and run off, and you've bought your expensive McMansion and you can't turn around and sell it easily, except now. Property is flying off the shelves now. But in a lot of places, it can have devastating consequences to ignore culture, especially in a war zone. That is the only thing I really fear for the Duggars, the Bates, and Medicorp, that they don't ignore the culture there, that they treat the culture kindly. There are a lot of Christians in Ukraine, so this is not going to be an opportunity for them to go proselytize and hand out tracts. This is going to be something entirely different. Occupying a country has been harder than capturing it. Well, you are exactly right. She always has to dehumanize them at everything. Yeah, the Ukraine is not concerned about COVID right now. Who can be when there is all this going on? You just can't. Would it be good if we all had gotten vaccinated and followed all the protocols? It would probably be over by now. But we're dealing with human beings, and human beings have different ideas. Like I said, we had a fight this morning over Ukraine and help, because my husband is thinking that Vladimir Putin is using this war as a way to tell the West that he needs respect. I'm looking at this from a purely, this is just vanilla wrong situation. And we can't agree on that. But like I said, he's watching a lot of Tucker Carlson lately. And I'm like, dude, if you're going to start watching Fox News, and you and I, we're going to have problems, because while I'll agree, occasionally Tucker manages to hit it right, and occasionally CNN manages to hit it right, occasionally One News Network hits it right, occasionally MSNBC. Nobody is 100% right. You just have to watch these things to form your own opinions. But he's forming in some opinions that are scaring the crap out of me. So we're going to have to come to an agreement on those. But those are Orthodox Christians or Catholics. They may try to convert because they consider Catholics not Christians, which I think is extremely wrong. I'm in a almost completely Catholic country, and Jesus is everywhere. There are religious signages everywhere. You run into Jesus everywhere. And still, we get evangelical Christian groups that come here and try to convert when they're not on the beach. That's the one thing. There are enough distractions where they spend most of their time touring the place, and very few actually proselytizing. Yeah, the Duggars are raising money, Lexi. The Duggars and the Bates, in order to fly over to the Ukraine and do help with their Medicorp charity. And they have gone in and helped out some various places. So I'm not opposed to that. KJ is making it seem as though this is the most horrible thing on the planet. I saw that, Java Man. I saw them win their court case by saying that Tucker was not a reputable news source. I kind of laughed over that. I point that out to my husband at least once a day because he watches Tucker relentlessly. And I'm kind of like, I'm not a fan of Tucker's ever since I saw the piece he did on poison guaro here in Costa Rica. And he neglected to mention that no tourists were dying of it. It was all Ticos that were buying this rot gut bootleg made in a bathtub guaro, which is basically sugarcane rum. He just was venting and reclimping about it, saying that Costa Rica was not safe for tourists because of this. This isn't even a tourist issue. And then he said that Costa Rica was an island. And I realized he was confusing Costa Rica with the Dominican Republic, which was having a poison liquor problem with tourism. Costa Rica, no. DR, yes. He said Costa Rica was an island, and I laughed and said, I think Nicaragua and Panama would be very surprised to hear that. So I can't take him seriously because he bollocksed up something so basic. I just can't. I can't stand listening to Tucker Carlson. Java Man, have you noticed he has kind of an odd linguistic pattern? I think it's kind of like a teenage boy trying to channel Captain Kirk. I listen to his voice and I just can't take it. I can only take it a few minutes. When my husband watches him, I have to go in the other room and turn the music loudly because I can't take it. Something about his speech pattern. And there are some people that I have that reaction to their speech pattern. And if I watch them, I turn the volume off and I put on captions and I read what they're saying because I just cannot handle it. And it's me, it's not them. Mary McPherson, if they try to pull what they did in the Bahamas in Ukraine, it's not going to go well for them, I don't think. And I think they will definitely pull charges if they do that this time. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they may not do that this time. Tucker Carlson is heir to the Swanson TV dinner money. Never ever think he's a normal man. I don't think he's a normal man. I've seen where he lives. He's not a normal man. So you should show your husband the video of Jon Stewart brutally taking down Tucker on his old CNN show Crossfire. He's seen that. And I'm not really sure why he's a fan of Tucker's, except that Tucker is pretty much anti-war. I'm going to give him that. And I'm pretty much anti-war myself. I believe in diplomacy. I believe in having nations come together. I'm a big believer in the UN peacekeeping force, which I think they need to be there right now too. I think that this is something that the world needs to work on. I think that Vladimir Putin is absolutely a war criminal because of the things he's done. I know that's a radical thing to say, but when you attack a nation that has done nothing to you, that is continuing to do nothing to you, that's just trying to mind their own business and be the breadbasket of the world, I can't help but think that. So at least Tucker is anti-war. My husband loves him. Like I said, I don't love any of these guys. And one day I'm going to have to give you my takedown of CNN's Don Lemon, who I used to like until he wrote his book on racism. And knowing that he and I came from the exact same small town in the South, and I read his account of living there, and I know what my account is. And he's only 6 years younger than I, so I know that little town could not have changed that much in that time. He was being raised in like a very racist little bubble, and he made it sound very unracist. At this point, a no-fly zone would protect Putin from the Ukraine. It really would. And there's no easy answer to any of this. That's the sad thing. We're sitting on the sidelines. Everyone is tutting and saying how horrible this is. But it doesn't look like there's a peaceful solution that we can force Putin to come into some kind of talks. I've been told this is all over the Ukraine wanting to join NATO. I don't know. I know that Russia has asked to join NATO and Bill Clinton blew them off. I'm not a Bill Clinton fan. I think that's terrible. I think if they had let Russia join the NATO, we wouldn't be where we are right now. I mean, you have to think about these things more than Republican, Democrat. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know there are a lot of people that like to have these outrageous fights. I'm not like that. I don't agree with both parties. I'm more independent, I guess you'd say. And I don't think both parties, there are some things about both parties I agree with as well. Lexi, that book, it was not a good thing. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to reread it and I'm going to do one of my Saturday book reviews. I lost a lot of respect for Don Lemon when I read the book. NATO is a defense agreement to protect Europe from Russia. That's true, but I think if you have Russia in there, yeah, but I think something has to happen with Russia. They have to feel like they are a part of things and that they have a voice. And I think that's what has happened here is they don't feel like they have a political voice in Europe, in the world. And that is taking some pretty bizarre turns. And I think that giving them a voice would be a good thing. But what do I know? I'm just one silly woman sitting here in Costa Rica. So these are just my opinions. I'm explaining how I got to my opinions. So do your own research, form your own opinions. I'm a big believer of that. Even if I don't agree with his opinion, but we have to live together. So we have to get along at least a little bit. Java Man, I'm talking about Don Lemon's book he wrote about racism that came out maybe about a year ago. Maybe it was a little less, a little more. I wish I could remember the name of the book. This is the Fire, I think is the name of the book. He wrote about racism in the wake of George Floyd and all of that as a Black man in America. And only thing I could see is he was writing from, and this is going to be ironic considering I just apologized again to Redneck Barbie for this, for speaking from a place of incredible privilege. I know I have incredible privilege. I usually recognize that. Sometimes I put my size 9 feet in my mouth like I did then. His entire book was written from a point of incredible privilege that I could not even begin to imagine. And that was what it struck me as. We both spent formative years in the same little southern town in Louisiana. We both did. And came away with completely different ideas about what is and isn't racism. If Russia would stop funding far-right groups and stop hacking other groups, will I agree? When I worked at NLQ, I used to have to clean off Russian bots and trolls all the damn time. Every day I spent at least an hour dealing with that crap, and it would piss me off because it was so unnecessary. This is the Fire. Yes, that's the name of the book. I am going to be reading that book and taking some notes and doing a review. Now, I know I stopped my book reviews because I just got my belly full of quiverful writers for a while. But I do intend to restart and cover some other books from all over the political spectrum and the not just the political spectrum, but like the socioeconomic kind of racist, all these different things. The thing about religion and talking and writing constantly about religion is you can really get burned out. I've been writing on my own book about what happened to me for a long time now. And I get really sick to my stomach when I have to keep recounting stories like the kid that cried masturbate or the little boy that they did an exorcism on because he was stoned, or the time they burned all the kids' Pokemon cards in front of them. And it caused a real stink. There are people at my old church that are dead now because they believed in some of the more out there belief system things that were going on. And when I have to recount things like the Seven Mountain Mandate, things I've forgotten all about, mercifully forgotten all about, it can be really, really disturbing to me and get under my skin. So, yesterday I was going to talk about the Shekinah angels that she was talking about, KJ was talking about. She was mistaking jewelry for that. There is no such thing as a Shekinah angel emblem. She's wrong about that. The only thing I remember about Shekinah, we used to talk about Shekinah glory coming down from God. Shekinah glory was the feminine energy of God that would come down and would just fill you. It was a positive thing, not this thing she's trying to make it out to be. So there's so much of this that is just disturbing, and that I have to look at in little bits and talk about in little bits. Because if I don't, my blood pressure goes up and I start curling into a ball and start going, no, because of having been through that stuff. It's like the other day I laughed over her coming up with her third church story because she's changed directions so many times. Lexi, she would never understand because she wasn't going to church for any of the right reasons. She wasn't going because she was trying to improve herself or trying to worship God or any of those things that most of us fall into. She was going with the idea that she could get something out of it. She could gain something. When your entire belief system is all about gaining from other people, gaming the system, getting things, then you tend to go off in these horrible directions. I got to get my glasses adjusted. Again, they keep falling off. I hate that. So she doesn't understand any of that. I don't think she ever will. It is what it is. So that's another reason why I end up talking about her so much, because she ends up talking about and misunderstanding so many parts of evangelicalism. I mean, crazy amounts. Now she's a biblical scholar. Yes, I saw that I was laughing. That Spanish language is very versatile. I have never actually heard her speak Spanish. And I'm immersed in Spanish speakers all day. And my Spanish is like really rudimentary. I'm just going to say, like yesterday, I went to Come Frutas. Come Frutas is a fruit and vegetable stand that I buy most of my fruits and vegetables at. And yesterday I was buying several large bags. I come in there limping in with my cane, grabbing a cart because I could walk fine with the cart. I have no balance issues. I can push that cart all day and shop all day and have no balance issues. So I get in there, and the guys there, they know me because I come in there all the time, and it's kind of like, hola, ¿cómo está? Muy bien, ¿y tú? You ask them how they're doing too. Just very simple language that I can handle. And at the end, they saw I had 2 big bags, and he called the guy over to give me ayuda, which is help. And I said, no necesita ayuda. Muy bien. And they didn't want to let me go. They were like, no, we're going to carry your bags for you. And I was like, no, I'm fine. So that's the level of Spanish I have, even after taking Spanish for 1 semester. But it gets me around. I can usually make myself well known and my needs well known, even in the hospital, pressing that butter, necesita agua, I murder the language, but I get myself known. But I'm not running around saying, I have a degree in Spanish. The thing about the Bible is that she doesn't realize that there are volumes interpreting it, such as Luther's Catechism, papal works, etc. Yes, exactly. And there's all kinds of concordances and translations and all different things. I wish I had not rearranged my bedroom, because I would pull out, I use a book that was written in the 1920s by a woman. I want to say her name is L.B. Cowman. Maybe that was it. I don't know. Cowan, called Streams in the Desert. I read that religiously. I have for years. It's my go-to. They take a piece of scripture and they talk about it. And it's all geared towards people who are dealing with chronic ailments. She wrote it in the depths of taking care of her husband and having issues herself. So it speaks volumes to me. And even though it was written all the way back then, there's timeless wisdom in it. There's timeless wisdom in a lot of things that have been written through the years. I love hymns. One of my favorite videos is one by, I wish I didn't have Lyrica Brain and old timers, not Alzheimer's, old timers. It's by a guy who does music on YouTube. He does sacred music. David, anyway, he did worship music through the ages, starting in like 500 and on. He does solos. He does the voices only, and it was just beautiful. Whenever I get super bummed out, I will go listen to his worship music through the ages, and all of it is just touches my heart. It's just right there in the feels. Even songs 540 AD, timeless wisdom. It's all good. It is literally all good. That's what the hardcore evangelicals that give me crap don't understand. They don't understand that there's ancient wisdom and that faith is a multifaceted jewel. It really is. And when we only look at one facet, we miss out on everything else that God may have for us. I'm a big believer in that. That's why I'm even reluctant to talk about my faith on YouTube or anywhere else, because I don't want some evangelical cheapening it by coming in and going, King James version only. And then I have to explain to them who King James the First was and his history and what Bible scholars say about the King James Version. And then they start calling me apostate and other filthy names. Yesterday on Twitter, somebody attacked me because I made some comment about evangelicalism, pointing out some little minor facet of how they believe, and he was attacking me. It was like, well, she was. So it's kind of like, nope, blocking your ass, moving your comment to Jerks for Jesus. Because that's what people that aren't following the thing they're claiming to follow do. The Council of Nicaea formalized what Christianity was. They did. She confuses Jesus' cleansing the temple with as if he were against the entire idea of church. He's not against the idea. KJ coming in. That would be terrible. That would be awful. Can you imagine? She has no nuance. I mean, we can look at how she looks at everything. Her view of life is black and white. She's all about what she can use, how it can personally benefit her. That's her entire view. It's not about who we can help or anything like that. And I see that my stream is dropping just as I'm losing my voice. So sadly, I got errands I got to run this morning and things I have to do. I've left links in the comments if you want to, I mean, in the description if you want to donate. If you feel moved to donate to helping Ukraine, I'm going to go ahead and do that myself in a little bit. In defiance, I am, because that's kind of how I am. I will do what I feel led to do. Oh, Michelle, it's a long one. You're going to have to go back and hit replay, crew, because I'm on my way out the door. Love all you guys. Interested in hearing all your views. We're just in some really strange times. I just got to throw that out there. Strange times indeed. Y'all have a great day.